Good morning. Happy Easter. I'm standing next to Montana's first Jewish temple, Temple Emmanuel. It was erected in 1890 by the Jewish community here in Helena, which was a little bit different than the Jewish community over in Butte, which had two temples. And there was quite a large community down in Billings. It's really quite an interesting story. Some wonderful people came out of that history. And then across the street is the St. Helena's Cathedral, the one that I've told you about before, that was pretty much paid for by an illiterate Irishman who dug a tunnel into a hill for about 8 years before he struck it rich up at the Marysville and created the Drumlummon mine. Also paid for the state of Montana's Capitol building, pretty much. The reason I'm standing here is today I'm struck, after reading through again the Passion of Christ and the interrelation between Christ and the prophets of the Jewish people and the Jewish high priests and Sanhedrins and all that. You know, there's plenty of drama there. It's really quite a story that results in Easter Sunday. It's very important to a lot of us. And I've always felt over these years that whatever we're raised with, whether it's being Jewish or being some variation on Christianity, Catholicism, or Presbyterianism, which is across the street, or Mormonism, whatever has given us our values that we use to sort out life and death are really important, really important. And I don't criticize people for their beliefs. I really don't. You know, and I just work on my own, try to make sure I'm trying to do things the right way. But let's think about this for a minute. What happened there back in the day, you know, was an epic transition in the Jewish faith, for some of the Jewish faith, to the Christian faith. And of course, it was followed by the Muslims, which also are descendants of Abraham. Makes you really think, because right now what I'm thinking about and what I'm really concerned about is the evil that comes with artificial intelligence. Now, one of the people that's peddling artificial intelligence, which everybody's put their money into, is a guy named Peter Thiel, and he says if you're against artificial intelligence, you're the anti-Christ. All right. And then if you criticize the targeting that's being done by the Israelis against their enemies in Gaza, southern Lebanon, and Iran as being inhumane, as being war crimes, certainly you'll be criticized as being anti-Semitic. Okay. So in other words, if you're against artificial intelligence and what it's being used for right now in the world of war, you're both anti-Semitic and anti-Christian. Hey, that's bogus. I think what we're dealing with now is something much more serious. I remember the Jewish American woman who, after studying the war crimes of the German people against the Jews in the Second World War, she came to the conclusion that evil is really something that's banal, the banality of evil. Little things that we do that add up to something that are a big thing. And I think that's what we're dealing with artificial intelligence. It's not the big thing that's by itself evil, but it allows people, both Jewish and American and Iranian, to hand their agency, their responsibilities that they've learned since they were little kids, off to this thing called artificial intelligence, this targeting system. So what I did is I'm not saying artificial intelligence is bad. I'm just saying that we've got to be very, very careful around it. And this war is the first evidence of how bad it really can be. This killing of little girls, this killing of civilians, this killing of aid workers, the world kitchen, all of it. It's not good. It's bad. It's evil. So what I did is I asked artificial intelligence to tell me what are some of the most banal things that have to be done to create the Maven Smart System. The Maven Smart System is Peter Thiel's Palantir company system that they've sold to the U.S. military. And they've also sold it to the Israeli Defense Forces. And it's now being used by our Department of Homeland Security to track us personally in our private lives here in this country. So I asked, what are the banal, the small, innocuous things that are being done to create this? And some of the most banal yet necessary tasks include massive data labeling. Human operators must manually label millions of images, over 4 million in the initial training data set, to train the AI to recognize military objects such as tanks, warships, and facilities. Well, they forgot that girls' school, didn't they? Then bounding box annotation, manually drawing yellow outline boxes around potential targets and blue outline boxes around friendly forces in vast quantities of video and photo imagery. Whoops, somebody forgot to not put a blue box around that girls' school. Ontology and data mapping, manually mapping, aligning, and creating living ontologies and taxonomies of data from disparate sensors to ensure that information from space-based satellites, airborne drones, ground radar, and social media feeds can be interpreted together. Data cleaning and formatting, cleaning up noisy intelligence reports, raw drone footage, and signals data to ensure the machine learning models do not learn incorrect patterns. For example, identifying clouds as school buses. Theater Pacific model calibration, continuously retraining and adjusting models to work in different environments, as an AI trained for the desert of Central Command will not work effectively for an AI trained for the jungles of Indo-Pacific Command over where Vietnam is. And then cloud burn management, managing and monitoring computing costs and data bandwidth for cloud-based systems. You know, that's all the all the AI issues we're dealing with in Montana now, and all these people want to come up here and have their AI farms here. Routine software training and maintenance. Contracting personnel spend days training on the system, which requires maintaining an accurate, updated, common operating picture while managing the logistics of the software itself. These unglamorous tasks are critical for automating the target detection and battlefield analysis that define the system's ability to operate at speed. That's to bring data and fuse it from 150 types of sensors. Wow, pretty impressive. Seems really impressive when you pull it all together, but basically it's a series of very small steps being done by human beings. And it all adds up, just like it did with the German army, to an Eichmann or a Hitler or a Trump able to do their thing. So how are we going to deal with this? I'm not sure. I honestly am not sure. I can tell you this, that artificial intelligence is an electricity-based technology. And in the last century, over half of our gross national product was created with electrification. If we lost our electricity system, say if AI started cascading out, we'd become a poor country again. We're very wealthy right now. And the reason that happened, that the imperative that's behind electrification, which includes AI, is all the gains that come for the expensive costs. Now this stuff's costing a lot of money. I mean, tons of money are being put into it by everybody and their duck. And they want to get a return on it, and they're not going to turn around. They're already buying an outcome from the next Congress by putting money in the right candidates' pockets. But what we have to do is we have to slow it down, and we have to look at what we want and what we don't want. And we have to be careful of banality of evil. And we have to rein in these targeting programs because they're a disgrace. Anyhow, happy Easter.